Call to order the Kearney R-1 Board of Education. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey, Brian Ham, Dan Holloway, John Kern,
Here.
Bree Schweitzer, Susan Warman, Mark Kelly.
Quorum being present, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Move that the agenda be approved as presented.
Second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. There's no public comment tonight. Next, we have recognitions. We have coaches from girls wrestling, boys wrestling, and Golden Girls. So we'll start with Coach Ward. Would you come forward, please? How are you this evening? Very much. Tell us a little bit about Ms. Martin.
Sure. So, let's see, about 2013, that's 9-ish years ago, met a little freckle-faced girl at a summer camp, only girl in the entire the wrestling room full of boys. Real feisty, real aggressive, full of spunk. Thought, man, if this girl stays around, we're going to have a lot of fun, and she's going to be really tough. And been looking forward to her showing up. So she shows up as a freshman this year. She went 41-9 on the season, which is outstanding. We have one class of girls wrestling in Missouri, so the entire state of Missouri is competing to get 16 spots in a bracket. So Bailey's path just to get to the state tournament was pretty difficult. She had, like I said, 41-9 record. She placed at the Kansas City Stampede, which is a really well-known national kind of caliber tournament. She was in a bubble match at the Wonder Woman tournament, which is another national level tournament. She's a wild one. She wrestles high energy, high octane. She's a lot of fun to watch, and her state tournament kind of is in a microcosm of that, really, because she started off as a pretty big underdog. The entire bracket, a lot of parity. Single-digit losses all the way through the bracket. 40-plus wins, 30-plus wins. So her first match was with a girl that she probably wasn't on paper supposed to beat. Had a couple common opponents that beat us, and she came out firing in the first round, gets the first period pin over a girl with 2 losses on the season. Makes it to the state quarterfinals against the girl that was the eventual state finalist. Lost a really close match and like a thriller. I'm talking 19 or 12 points. That's a lot of points in a wrestling match. A lot of energy. Comes back to the backside and upset some more girls that she really wasn't supposed to be. And we always say kind of before she walks out, we're going to let the squirrel out of the cage here, and she goes and just attacks. And so we had a lot of fun with her. She had a great season. Bring her up now. All right, Bailey Martin.
Somebody's got to start.
Good evening. First off, thanks to the board for having us out tonight and recognizing these outstanding young men and women. So I get to talk about the boys wrestling state medalists. I'll start in reverse order up there on the screen with freshman Ryder Felton. He came in with some youth credentials, so we knew coming in that we were going to have a real tough competitor just to start. That's something to where if you have some years under your belt in wrestling, coming as a freshman obviously really helps. So came in and after just a few weeks got a #1 ranking for the 106-pound weight class, which he hadn't even officially made yet, but we knew that was the plan. So that was the other thing we asked him to do was, hey, we need you to, wrestling has this discipline off the mat, on the mat type of thing. So, hey, we need you to cut a few pounds just to fill out this lineup and be your best. And so he did that and did that really well. So just a few of the stats, I had to write them down because we got a pretty accomplished list as a freshman. So he finished the season 39-3. Took 5th place at the Kansas City Stampede, which is a big national tournament. He won the Winnetonka tournament, which is a big Kansas City area tournament. He then went on to win the Class 3 District 4 tournament that we got to host at Kearney High School. And then obviously went on and was a state champion at the 106-pound weight class as a freshman. So that helped him get a first-team all-conference honor as well, and went perfect record in the conference along with the team. So freshman rider show, 106-pound state champ. Like I said, come on up. Next, I have senior Darren Langford. Darren wrestled at 152 pounds for us. So Darren missed his freshman season due to a broken leg, and then has been a 3-year starter for us ever since. Was a 3-time state qualifier, so made the state tournament for the third time this year, and then made the podium for the first time this year with a 5th place finish. He finished the season 31-14. Also placed 6th place at the big Winnetonka tournament. Was a 2nd place at the Liberty tournament just down the street, and then was a district champion, and then made the semifinals at state, which is a big deal, which guarantees a state medal, and then finished the tournament in the 5th place. So he was a 3-time state qualifier, 3-time first team all conference, and then he made an academic all state this year as well. So senior Darren Lang. And then lastly, senior Eli Ashcroft was at 145 pounds for us this year. He finished the season 37-3. Finished his high school career with 158 varsity wins. So that's a real big deal. The 150 marks one that a lot of people chase, and not everyone's able to get there. Was a 4-time district champion, 4-time all-conference, 4-time academic all-state, and finished this year as a 4-time state champion. Pretty cool postseason awards. The Missouri Wrestling Association gets together, and all coaches, all classes vote on these. And he was voted the Class 3 District Wrestler of the Year. He was voted the Class 3 State Wrestler of the Year, and then he was voted the All Missouri Male Wrestler of the Year. So Eli Ashcroft, come on back. He gets to hang out at Kent State next year on a wrestling scholarship as well. So.
I'm going to take a picture, then go let your parents take a picture, okay? Excellent. Yep. All right.
Coach Anderson?
I'm Coach Anderson with the Golden Girls, and first off, we just want to say thank you for having us here tonight. This is really exciting for us. We've had a really great season. Starting off, I mean, you guys see us throughout the season with football games and basketball games, but maybe what you don't know is that we have some serious competitors right here, and they've worked really, really hard this season. We started off the year with fundraising a ton, and we thank our community for helping us with that. That's what got us to nationals this year. So you may not know a ton about dance competitions, so I'm going to try and give you just a brief overview of what that looks like. So when you go to nationals, one, it's were bombarded with our fundraising. But once you get there, there's so many amazing teams. Like, we were just blown away. Every corner you turn, there's another great team practicing. And our entire goal was, please just let us make it to finals. Like, no matter if we have to go to the second chance round, like, that's all that we want, is to be able to make it to finals and put Kearney's name on that board. So when you go, you compete in a prelims round, and only the top 3 to 5 teams get to make it onto finals. Everyone else has to go to what they call a second chance round or a semis round. And so for us, we were like, we'll do the second chance round. We don't want to have to dance multiple times a day, but we'll do it if that's what it means to make it to finals. So we performed Pom first, and they had the best performance we've ever seen, and we made it straight to finals the first time. So we were super excited. We didn't have to do Pom again that day. And then we got to do jazz, and this was the biggest category of nationals. It was so tough. I mean, they're just amazing teams. So we were like, please just let us make it to finals. So we're all sitting together, we're all holding hands, and they announced Kearney as making it straight through to finals for jazz. And I think I can speak for Coach Sarah and Ken's to say, like, that right there was like one of the best moments, because we worked so hard, and to hear our name called to be one of the top teams making it straight through to finals was huge. So then on Sunday we got to compete, and we ended up taking 10th in Pom and 16th in jazz, and we were just super, super excited. It was such a fun weekend. We got to turn around and go to St. Louis for state, and we took first in Pom, and we took first in jazz, and then we took first overall. So becoming the first time we've been state champions in this program, and then we had our junior Sophia Brown take first overall for juniors and for solo. So it was a really, really exciting weekend, super exciting season. We just had our team worked really hard. Our community helped us a lot. We are very grateful, and we were very excited to wrap up our season this way. Yep, absolutely. All right, Jessica Baldwin. Allie Bell. Sophia Brown. Kai Curtis. Madeline Duncan. Chloe Ferris. Eden Ersick. Lily Liberty. Madison Pennington. Kennedy Slaughter. Aubrey Taylor. Michaela Dark. Sophia Frank. And then also unable to attend tonight, we had Avery Aller, Ari Watkins, and Grace. I just also wanted to say real quick.
All went to the back. So everybody.
Coach Rachel Sarah, I just want to give her a huge shout out, because she's been amazing and helping us, and really pushing the team and being that positive motivator. And then we had Kenzie Liberty, who came back after she graduated and helped us this season as well, and pushed the girls, and was such a positive influence. So without them, we wouldn't be here where we are today. So thank you.
Yeah. So don't go anywhere. Your parents are going to come get some pictures. All right? You guys, everybody in? Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Parents, hold on.
Hold your position.
Congratulations.
Can somebody call me when you're selling moms again?
We appreciate all the athletes, all coming out tonight, participants. You guys are fantastic. You don't have to stay around though. Not to be all those.
I'm just always shocked that everybody gets up. It's just,
Thank you very much.
It's really clear.
Next, we have consent agenda.
Move that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. She slowed raising. She did.
I thought we wanted to talk about the MSBA. We did not move that out of consent. The MSBA agreement, that was in consent.
Was it inside?
Yes.
We do need to. So can we kill the last? What's the rules of that? So can I move to? So I'm going to move to disapprove of the last approval of the consent agenda. Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. So, contained within the consent agenda is the discussion of maintenance, MSBA maintenance agreement.
Yep.
And our board policies. And so, we historically have used MSBA, on occasion, looked at other sources for that. And there are more sources out there to look at and consider. Some of the things to consider is MSBA is never going to be counsel our attorneys in defending any of these policies. And so, to the extent that that's the case, and we don't have to approve it tonight, we don't have to disapprove it tonight. It's a matter of at least considering what our options are and whether we want to look at options before we simply say we want to continue with MSBA. Before we do that.
I think an RFP would be a good. That would be where we would start. Basically, we would get pricing for other entities other than MSBA. And the reason why we want to do this is open enrollment. They're obviously not here tonight. After we talked about hopefully that they would come, so they're not here. So do they really represent us? And yeah. So just give us an update. Okay. Okay.
And I can speak to that too,
Okay.
when the time is right.
Okay.
I will tell you, I'm not voting on that. I may not make the appearance. So do I have some affiliation with requesting to represent?
Sure. Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
So can we can do an RFP. There are three policy services in the state, MS, MSBA and 2 others that are attached to law firms. We can do an RFP if you so choose, or we can just reach out to those other 2 entities and ask them to provide us with a proposal.
That'd be fun.
And this particular agreement is through next February, so it's a 1-year agreement. Darlene, do you have something?
No, I was looking for what I've written on that, I'm sorry. I don't have it.
Oh, it's,
Oh, see, I had to use my glasses.
Everybody.
I apologize for being late as well. So yeah, these were my notes from when I went to the legislative forum and heard the presentation about the concerns, and we certainly were not alone. There was a session specifically about legislative issues, and the open enrollment question was the one they discussed the most, and they were prepared to talk about it. So their stance that we heard, that was reported to us in the summary, was that they were in support of the issue, but they made it clear, at least I felt comfortable, that they were working through the system as they needed to be able to comment on the proposal. And so they wanted to express concerns on behalf of the membership, and they referred back to what was voted on at the MSBA conference in November. We had specific concerns about open enrollment, and so they were speaking for the membership. They were not speaking for the proposal, but simply wanted to be able to have the opportunity to speak to the proposal and what they felt would need to change in any type of proposal for open enrollment for there to be support of MSBA and MSBA members.
After our last meeting, when we talked about this, I reached out to 2 of the board of directors for MSBA, and they echoed the same response that you have. So everything's been consistent on their response from what I.
To some degree, I mean, the fact that they brought in different lobbyists specifically to address this particular legislature.
Concerns may concern you, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm only saying there are some things that don't necessarily support that characterization. I'm simply saying, don't accept everything face value when it may be.
No, I think it's a different point.
Okay.
Than what I was. Yeah.
Yeah,
They're consistent with the messaging of what they believe. That is a different thing they did.
and it was clear that the consensus of those in attendance who are members of MSBA, like we are very concerned about this. We're not opposed to it. So I think they got this strong message that the inconsistency or non-clarity of the previous message was a problem, and they needed to be very clear in the future what they were doing and why they were doing it. So
It certainly could affect their approach in the future based on.
yeah. So I'm comfortable with that. So sorry, I didn't see what was right in front of me.
So do we need to amend the consent agenda?
Or approve it with the exceptions now of the MSA.
Okay, so move to approve consent agenda with the exception of the approval of the MSBA maintenance agreement.
Second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. You said we'll select the MSBA agreement.
Wait, what was that?
We'll put it on the April agenda.
Is everybody in agreement on that?
I thought that's what we just discussed.
Well, I'm just saying, I thought you separated it just to separate it.
No, it's like just not to include it unless somebody wants to.
Is that what everybody?
So then we're just not going to act on it.
That's correct.
We're just not acting on it until April.
We're not saying no, and we're not saying yes. We're just not voting on it tonight.
We're just waiting, we're just pushing it back.
Kicking the can down.
A little bit.
But the thought process is that we will look at other options. as well.
You'll have 3 options to look at. Presumably, if the other 2 provide you with a proposal, select.
Do majority of districts go with MSBA?
I would say a lion's share of them do. There's been, to my understanding, there's been more and more that have gone to the other two because they are legal firms. Back in March or earlier point, when you deal with policy and the enforcement of it, or the objection to it, it's nice to have those that are writing it or those that are defending it.
How's it gonna be determined? What are the legal ramifications of what policies?
Right. So currently we have our legal counsel and an SBA. Do most districts carry both? Do we carry account on full policy and then continue our legal?
Right now, I would say yes, because the
Right,
language.
but like, so do most districts carry two separate to get?
It's been evolved. I would still say it's probably most used in SBA. It used to be, I mean, if you asked me 15 years ago when I started this, yes.
Right.
Okay. You'd ask me today, I would say maybe 20 to 30%. Okay. It's looking at this currently, yeah. It's a product to some degree, litigation in general. Anyway, you interpret policy, how it's going to be applied to students.
Right.
Okay. And so SBA puts out something that is global for the state. Think of it that way.
Right.
That it is not tailored to KHS or Liberty or Excelsior.
Right.
All right. And we've done that. I mean, Jeff over the years has looked at other policies and we haven't mirrored what the SBA says.
Right.
Sometimes we send it to them to look at, give us our thoughts on it, but we don't just blanket accept MSBA.
Take it, right.
And I see there were some benefits to having an attorney on the board at times for that setting.
Slightly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now it is using legal counsel to do that. Okay, and tailoring it to Kearney, Missouri, what our board thinks is important. You know, we want to include that, even some of the other board policies that we were looking at for this meeting. Okay, so it is tailored to Kearney, Missouri, KHS. And so that's really the way we look at it.
Do we know if they've already invoiced us for this since it started March 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we haven't signed it.
I just wondered if they, I'm reading through the contract as to how long we have to pay them.
That answers the next question. Okay. All right. Next we have information items, financials. Ms. Olson is not here tonight. Any assume we're kind of on budget. Taxes have all come in. So the vast majority of them are just on budget for the year. Kearney County.
We have a PowerPoint presentation. We're supposed to have
You were welcome to use that if you wanted. We moved it out of the way with our presentation. So.
They're getting it just
You'll see the PowerPoint as you're doing it.
I can do that.
Can you take your?
I can do fine with that, I think.
We're bringing it.
Okay.
You like it.
The wheels on that thing are terrible.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Eric Todd, teacher with Kearney Academy. This is Wayne Bowers, fellow with Kearney
Hey,
Academy.
hold on, they're getting you out here.
Just a moment, pull it out, apologize.
You're fine.
Sorry.
No.
So, obviously, you know, the Kearney education program here in the Kearney School District. I'm a lead teacher facilitator. Elaine is my paraprofessional who's seeking her master's in counseling. And after semester, we brought in Doug Stars, a former teacher, to be another teacher with us at the Academy. Okay.
Can you watch the video?
I don't have access to it. Can you send me the video too? Okay, I found it.
Can you do that? Oh, cool.
People could think that coming to Kearney Academy is an easy situation. That is not our intention at all.
Kearney Academy is an alternative school that gives students the chance to learn in a way more structured than the normal school environment. It's helped me give creativity to the way I learn, and it's helped me skyrocket on knowledge.
Focus on more because I have a lot of attraction to society.
Right. You actually try to focus on actually and make sure that you get your goals. My favorite part of the job is seeing students who have struggled with other partners find success and see them find an assignment for able to identify things that they're interested in and pursue this interest. My favorite part about Kearney Academy is like an actual life.
Probably need a little bit to choose when I get to work on. I really enjoy the students that we have. My personality, which I agree with, we have such a small group. You're important to them.
This place is more like a safe place. I find trying to stand like any of the teachers or any of the classmates with my any personal thing of life. When you get to know each other individually, they're all fantastic people. They absolutely have the capacity and we work demonstrating that here. Okay. So, a number of projects of interest that we have listed up there. We started off at the beginning of the semester, and it's kind of fluid, but identifying student interests, what they're interested in learning, and what they want to explore, what they want to experience. And we put together a program for them, and then they kind of plug through that program. So some of the projects that well, all of Mrs. Bauer start off actually. She's going to do the first one.
So we have a student who did a butterfly project. She found online this company that will send you exotic butterflies, and you kind of go through this process of basically giving them moisture in a container for a while so you can unfold the wings and pin them and then dry them in. And she had this frame set up that she was going to put them in. Very exciting. And got through the hardest part with her, and then we went to put the lid on the frame, and then the butterfly wings broke because it was too tall. And I'm telling you this because this particular student struggles with perfectionism. She really, the butterflies are so delicate and just beautiful, and she wanted it to be perfect, of course. And when it wasn't, it was a huge struggle for her to accept that and move forward in a different way. And so, but we decided to get some epoxy resin and some like coaster molds. And so she's done that instead. But to see her not let it ruin her whole day, it just shows a huge amount of growth from where she started with us to when that happened about a month or two ago. So that was a fun project. Same student also did a history of mental health timeline. So she created a PowerPoint about how mental health has been treated over the past couple hundred years. And I think she learned a lot and then learned more about how mental health is treated today.
Okay, I'm going to briefly mention this next one, internal combustion engine project. Had a student that was very, very academically unmotivated. Talked him into getting a hold of a lawnmower engine. He brings this lawnmower engine in up here, break it down, identify all the pieces, put it back together, do some research over it, and some assignments over it, do some writings over it, and it was amazing to see somebody that was not refusing, but reluctant to do anything, and all of a sudden he's completely invested. Another one, we had a couple students do an astronomy project where they did a lot of research over astronomy, different aspects of it and whatnot, to different levels for each of them. And then one of them did like a model solar system, and the other one did took his in the direction of constellations.
We also have an indoor garden going with grow lights and buckets. And it's been a learning experience for me and for the students, but we have some tomatoes growing and some bell peppers, and hopefully you guys can have that. Maybe cut something. And that goes to the Culinary Arts. We usually on Fridays we'll bring in some groceries. Students get to decide what they want to make and to give us a list of ingredients, and Chicago to the grocery store in the morning. And so they'll make a meal. They've made spaghetti, quesadillas, burgers, French toast, a whole breakfast spread. It's been pretty cool.
So we got some a kit of electrical circuits, and there's directions on how to set up these different electrical circuits. It's really been exceptional for the kids that enjoy the more hands-on stuff, and then they can identify how those things work. And then another one that's been a phenomenal project, and she might be able to speak to it a little better when she comes up here, but human body systems project that has lasted it's not the only thing she's worked on by far, but it's lasted throughout the year, and it's been in-depth research, in-depth note-taking, in-depth diagrams, and now she has some models that she's made with real organs made out of clay that are to scale and all kinds of really neat stuff.
So for real-world learning opportunities, students have the opportunity to job shadow. We had a student who's interested in cosmetology as a possible career path, so she went to a salon here in Kearney and job shadowed, and to see her come in all dressed up and not in sweatpants, but looking like a mom, she said, it was great to see her excited about that and get to go out in the community and do something. And Caitlin, who will be speaking later, she did a mural that bees flowers in the window. She did a holiday kind of theme, and so that was really neat to watch her, to see her painting. Oh, and sorry, these opportunities really give students a chance to kind of put together a resume with some guidance and practice their interview skills, which is something they really want.
Another student, same one that did the internal combustion project, very reluctant to do this, but I finally talked him into going and putting in an application to do a job shadow at the Northland Career Center. He puts in his application, he goes and does the job shadow, and he comes back just completely excited again about the prospect of being able to go and work on welding next year at the Career Center. And then for the first semester, once a week, I had a student that would go over to the Kearney Museum for a client-based project where he would go over there. And he did whatever they asked, but he took pictures of artifacts and cataloged them and things like that. And it's a student who's particularly interested in social studies, so that was a good fit. And then another student that goes over and works with our tech guys at the Student Support Center on Fridays.
So for our social emotional learning, we have the Character Strong program, which is an online curricula set up for, lots of different lessons from ninth grade to 12th grade. And so we get together as a group and go through the lesson, and it ranges in things like putting yourself in someone else's shoes, how to actually be a helpful person when someone's struggling with something. And we got some really great discussions out of it, and I think it's helped build a community of safety in our classroom.
So we work real closely with our counselors, both ones that are in the high school where we reside, and then also Ms. Anderson from the junior high, because she had created good relationships with some of our students while there, and that's been great for our kids. And then we also have a few that are hooked up with some therapists from the outside that come and work with them. And then we did start today was our first day with substance abuse program where they're coming in, the preferred family health representatives coming in and working with their students on that.
Are the students in the academy all day long?
Most of them, yes. Yeah, we got one that we're transitioning in right now, who's going to be a slow transition, so he's not in full-time yet.
What grades are they in?
Our youngest is 7th grade through 12th.
And another aspect of the social emotional learning that I think has a huge impact is just conversations with students. A lot of them have had some behavioral issues, some emotional issues, or challenges, I should say. And so when things kind of don't go as planned and we have an outburst, that's an opportunity to learn from that for all of us. So it's a lot.
How many students in the academy?
We are at 17 right now. All right. Environment, it's a more relaxed environment than your general education classroom is. We have more flexible seating, softer lighting. Students move from class to class. We got 3 classrooms right now. So one day they might feel comfortable down here, but then they've had a spat with that person in that room, so today they're working in a different room.
We also have built-in break times throughout the day, and in the morning when they come in at around 8, they kind of trickle in because of just different bus riding and then 8:30 is when they start working. So it gives them a chance to relax and sort of like softer lighting without the bright lights immediately on them, and they can just kind of get themselves in the right mindset, listen to music or play some games with each other.
Okay, I talked earlier about wanting them to have experiences, and so we try to get out of our area from time to time. So we've done a number of field trips throughout the year. So
our first one at the Watkinsville State Park, that was we just went outside and grilled some hamburgers and played some cornhole. And we'll probably plan on doing that again once the weather lets up. And we went to the Auschwitz exhibit at Union Station. That was pretty incredible if you haven't had a chance to go yet. And I think our students really got a lot out of that. We also went to Science City and the planetarium, and I gave them a chance to just be kids and kind of play around and learn something as well.
I think it was our second one. We went to a group of museums in St. Joe. They're all joined together. And what brought us there was the War Psychiatric Museum, because we had a couple of kids that were studying the history of mental health and stuff like that we talked about. And it ties into the African American Archives, the Doll Museum, the Native American and History Gallery. So it kind of covered a broad scheme of different things when we went to that. Okay, Big Picture Learning is an outfit that I got hooked up with by a guy who works over at Liberty Academy. And it's it's funded through the Kaufman Foundation, so we don't have to pay anything for it, and it's just another resource for us to kind of learn how to get kids interested or find out what they're interested in. Because some of them know, and it's not difficult, but there's some of them I'm interested in, playing video games is all. And so helping us help them figure that out and get them excited.
We had a woman come in for big picture learning and do, I think, like a 2-hour group session with kids and different activities involving the identities that they have had throughout their lives, the names that they have been called by different people, and surfacing their interests from childhood and present day and how it might tie into their future paths.
And I believe it's next Friday. I'm going to an in-person convening up in the city. I just got some details about that trip today. It looks like we are going to be meeting at an outfit called Boys Grow, which is inner city. It's for inner city youth, like junior high school age, where they take them and they learn agricultural skills. And I think it's like farm to table kind of skills. So they're working from getting dirty in the garden or on the farm all the way to preparing meals and stuff like that. So I think we're going to actually get to see these kids in action and kind of help us experience and feel what it takes to get kids into that kind of identifying interest and real world learning kind of situation. All right. So talking about, we got 3 rooms right now. We've got 17 kids. We've got waiting lists. We got, individuals that have been identified in our different buildings that could benefit from our program. And I think that need is just going to increase. So talking about future needs and plans. Academically, we're going to continue working on embedding credits based on our priority standards. I talk about college and career ready. I've been talking with an outfit called Z-Space. I really like the idea of authentic type stuff, and the Z-Space, it's not virtual reality, it's augmented reality, I think is what it's called. So you got a computer, and depending on what the program is, for instance, there's one on dissecting animals. And so you got this, I don't remember if it's a glove or what, but you're reaching into the computer and bringing out these organs and able to see them like they're right there in front of you. And that's just one example of like an academic one, but there's math ones. When I was at Liberty Academy last year, there was a student that was learning how to weld using a Z-Space. There's an auto mechanics one where you're actually taking apart vehicles and fixing problems in them through the computer. So that's something I would like to move forward with at some point. I don't want to use it to replace any of the authentic kind of learning things we're already doing. I just want to use it to augment those. Staffing, as the program grows, hiring the right staff to support the program is vital. And in our team meetings and whatnot, we've talked a number of times about it's not so much what area you're certified in. At Kearney Academy, it's more in the lines of being the right person to serve the needs of those kids that we have there. Because they're like any kids, unique, but these have unique issues and they just need the right person to work with them. And then the last thing, facility. In order to adequately go to the right facility, it will be a must. So like right now, we've got 3 classrooms and an office that we can use. And it's not going to take long before we outgrow that unless we just deny some of these kids that are on the waiting list the opportunity to come work with us. And I think the further we get into this, the further we're going to realize there's more kids out there that could benefit from something like this than we realize. So, Caitlin, Miss Mary, you want to come on up? So, Caitlin's going to talk to you for a few minutes about what Kearney Academy has done for her. She's one of our star pupils.
For me, starting with Kearney camping, it had been a lot that led up to it. I had been struggling the year before. I was actually managing to do my own schoolwork because we had gone through quarantine and I had been home. And instead of doing the work, I couldn't motivate myself while I was by myself. And I had let my grades slip. And then whenever school started coming back in, and we had days where we would be in classes, and then the days after we weren't, and we were still doing work. Even on those days, I neglected a lot of my schoolwork, and I didn't do what I needed to get done to keep my grades. And at the same time, because of how shut off I was from my friends, I was going into really dark, and I was struggling a lot. So when I came back to school, I wasn't able to easily pick myself back up. So all of that, along with some health issues along the way, both mental and physical, led to me being offered by my counselor, looking for a space in Kearney Academy. I didn't know what it was until the day I stepped in the door. And when I stepped in the door, I was honestly surprised because it wasn't anything like what I expected it to be. It was so much nicer than what I thought it was going to be. When I heard about it, I was nervous because I was like, this just sounds like a worse, smaller version of my normal classes. And I was scared at first, but then I walked in, and Todd, who's literally one of the nicest teachers I've ever had the pleasure of being taught by, was welcoming to literally everyone. He explained everything, and it was all really simple. And one of the first things we did in the first couple of weeks was we were talked to about what we wanted our school to our learning to be like, and having the freedom to be able to choose what was easiest for me to learn was really helpful, because I know for me, I'm a visual learner, and whenever they give you sheets of work in class, it's really hard for me to be able to follow. And so whenever we had classes that were like that, it was a struggle to get myself motivated enough to actually do that work, because I knew that most likely I would just not be able to understand it, or not be able to get teachers, and I'm not the only kid that those teachers have to deal with. So going to those teachers was always harder, and being able to understand these classes was always so much harder. So whenever I was given the opportunity to choose my own schoolwork and choose how I would be able to learn, was looking a horse in the mouth. It was amazing, and it was something that I had expected from getting there. And when I got started on my work, it was honestly a genuine surprise that I started enjoying school. I went from waking up in the morning and being like, God, this again. I gotta get up, I gotta get ready, I gotta go to school. That makes my anxiety spike, that I hate dealing with the people that work, not the people that work here, the people that go to school here. Technically work because they're doing school there, but that's not. And I started genuinely waking up in the morning and being like, yes, I get to go back to the project that I was working on yesterday. I get to go back to looking at this research paper that I'm really interested in because I got to choose that research paper. Or I get to go back and work on this diagram that I started yesterday because I was working with the human body system and I wanted to be able to essentially show people how I learned, which was a visual guide to the human body, which is what I got to make this year because that's what I chose for my classwork. I chose to read and learn from this website that I found that I'm pretty sure is for college medical students. I'm not sure though, but it's a full explanation of the human body from different systems. So it had divided the human body into the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, the skeletal muscle, and all of the different things. And I started a spiral notebook at the beginning of the year, and I have got 3/4 of the way through it with each of those sections. And every time that I did those sections, it wasn't sitting down and reading a research paper and having to make myself sit there and be forced to do something that I didn't want to do. It was something that I genuinely sat and was like, gosh, I'm really excited to learn about this. I'm so ready to take my notes. I would get to school, and the first thing I did, instead of like sitting around and like waiting to get to 8:30 and then being like, oh, great, now I've got to go start school, I would go immediately to my drawer, pull out my stuff, and get to work because I was ready and willing to work.
You want to show them your.
Should I just like hold it up, or do you want
You
to
might
pass
just
it?
pass it around if it's okay.
Yeah, all right.
Sure. What grade are you in now?
I'm a junior.
A junior.
And what was it? In the freshman year was when freshman and sophomore is when I started to decline, and then when I got to it this year, everything started going a lot better than it was. And now I genuinely like look forward to getting to school. Over grade, I took homework and did work because I was like, I want to finish this before fourth quarter.
Do you guys have any questions for Caitlin or Ms. Berry?
Yeah, I have a question. So where you're at, just looking at some of the stuff, and I don't know if some of the stuff you took from was Dr. Netter. I know he did a lot of different drawings and stuff like that, and anatomy, actual human anatomy. But what is it you want to do when you're done? What do you want?
I'm hoping to go into a art career, but part of the reason that I went into anatomy was because, I don't know if any of you know this, but when you're working with the human body, whenever you're drawing, it's not just like drawing the shape of a human, you have to actually like be able to understand how the muscles lay under the skin and would move a human body. Specifically in animation, which I'm really interested in. If you're, like, unless it's a really cartoony style, which is not the way I draw, the way a human body moves is limited, obviously. You can't, like, dislocate your shoulder while you're moving. So I wanted to be able to easily understand how, like, the human body would be able to pull and move itself. Like, if you move your neck, your spine moves with it. Every muscle along your spine, which, by the way, spinal muscles look really weird. They're literally layered in between each other. It's the weirdest thing. I didn't know spinal muscles looked like that at all. So when I'm animating, I would have to understand that it wouldn't just be like the neck moving, because then it would look like someone just like snapped their neck, and it doesn't look like that. I'd have to understand that like the shoulder would tilt, the rest of the hip would like stay in place, but the torso would move. And the person's head wouldn't just tilt, it would be the entire neck and head along with the joints. So it wouldn't just be like this, it would be both of them moving. So that's why I got into anatomy. And then I found out that I actually really liked learning about anatomy without having to apply it to a practical art.
Oh, that's great. I've obviously been in cadaver labs and different things with being in the health field and doing some different things, but there's a lot of CGI, computer-generated artwork out there that can incorporate and stuff like that, and give a lot of people that remote type learning with applying what you do for not having to be a hands-on type in a room with such a situation. Yeah.
How long did it take you to do this page?
The leg and the one you're holding I did in the same day.
The arms and legs?
Yes.
You did these two in one day? That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I'm very impressed.
Your excitement makes me excited for you. And I can tell, hear in your story that you are excited for your future, and I think that's incredible. So, good job.
Did you? I just got to ask one more thing. When you went to the St. Joseph Museum, the Clore Museum, what was the takeaway from that psychiatric museum? I've been there. I'm just curious what at your age.
It was actually really interesting to learn that a lot of like the basic stuff that we hear about, like talked about like medical jargon, had such like a really strange way of like coming into existence, and getting to learn some of the stuff now that's actually pretty normalized, like depression and anxiety was stuff that like people were treated like they were insane or like they were crazy, and they were treated like less just because they struggled with some of the same stuff that I struggled with. It was interesting to like see from like a different point of view. So I thought it was really cool.
Thank you for sharing your work with us. It's great to hear how well you're doing.
Anybody have any other questions for these two guys?
Do you have anything you want to tell us?
I'm super impressed with Mr. Todd. He really eased my mind because, like she said, like when we went into quarantine at the end of freshman year, she did fine. I mean, she finished her freshman year, we were great. I have the ability to go to the house every day for lunch, so I would go to lunch and I would ask her, I'd say, how are you doing on your homework? And she would just say, I'm doing fine. So she's never lied, she's never done anything like that, so you know, I was like, okay, this is fine. Unfortunately, it wasn't fine, but by the time I found out it wasn't okay and they contacted me to let me know it was late in the fall, so we had no recourse to go back and try to work on our English grade, so we failed English the first semester. So by doing that, we were required to go back in person, and she really struggled with her anxiety, and then a year ago, this month, she was in a psychiatric ward for 5 days. So to see her now, one, excited to go to school, I don't have to she's up and around, and when she's at her dad's, she's up at 5:30 in the morning, she gets around, she eats breakfast, she's listening to her music on her TV and drawing or whatever before I get there, and so Mr. Todd's been wonderful because when we went into this, my experience with alternative learning had been my father-in-law worked in Oklahoma City in a school called Santa Fe, and their alternative structure was kids who had children who had to work, and so they were kind of an alternative school so that they could get their education and provide for their children or for their families or for whatever situation they were in. So going into this, until I talked to Mr. Todd in August, I was like, okay, what kind of alternative thing am I getting into here? I had no idea the structure. He's fabulous at communicating with me. I mean, he's just on top of it, and it just hurts my heart that there are so many kids in our community that I know personally need something like this. I had no idea that my own daughter struggled in general education school classrooms at all. She was an A student, she was always doing well, and at the end of freshman year and our sophomore year, everything went south. And whenever you have to tell your baby goodbye and you see them rolling out on a stretcher and you can't go to that hospital with them because of COVID, let me tell you what, that's the lowest, almost the lowest I've ever been in my life. To know I couldn't walk out of the hospital with her, no. I couldn't see her. I had certain times I could call and talk to her. So for me, I don't want other parents to go through that. I mean, I work in our community. I've been in this community 24 years. But there are so many kids. And I realized that in order to do that, we're gonna need more facility. We're gonna need more people who have a heart for that and who are educated about all of these depression, anxiety, just not able to work in a general classroom structure. And fortunately, I didn't have that issue growing up, but things have changed so much. The communication's not there because you have electronics. Their electronics take over the speech. Kids don't know how to communicate. And without that, and when you're just one of 20 kids in a classroom or 30 kids in a classroom and you're throwing homework, if you don't comprehend it, sometimes they fall between the tracks. And this has just been an amazing, amazing change for me, guys. I just come to you as mom, as a community member. I love everybody. I don't try to judge, and I really, really don't want to judge these kids that are struggling. Because after Caitlin and I've been through this last year, I don't want any parent to have to tell their kid goodbye and not be able to go with them, or maybe never even see them because it commits suicide. I didn't know how close I was to losing my baby to suicide or anything else. Thank God she had an open conversation and called me and said, I need to go.
Thank you for coming and talking to us. Amazing. It's been fantastic to listen to this.
But
No, we're like all on the edge of our seats.
No, it's important to share that with everybody, so people don't see that side, and as a health professional, I see different things every day, and I think it's important to hear that coming from, and somebody, and for her too, to be the support
And any questions we've had, Mr. Todd's been wonderful. I mean, I sent him a message the other day, said, hey, I have an early morning doctor's appointment, she's gonna be late. He's like, no problem. She's a great student, and he sent the message and says, you know what, she just amazes me, I promise every single day. And that's good, because I didn't hear that a lot from the other, teachers, because they're so busy with everything else. So it makes a huge difference. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and that applause was for you, Caitlin. The program was great, but the applause was for you.
How long has that program been?
30. And we had extra personnel, midway through this year because we did.
And a waiting list.
And there's still a waiting list. Right. All right. Next we have action items. First we have update on our return to school plan, return to learn plan.
Yes, the update is that there's no further revisions other than what we have provided to you in previous meetings. I don't see any additional items until Clay County Health removes their current order. But as you can see, Ryan will flip over there right quick. We have one staff member, and so our numbers for students are really, really good at this point. So, and unless or until something changes, I might just recommend that we don't need this item unless or until something changes, and we can then bring it back to you if that's your pleasure.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah.
My husband got to have lunch with my kindergartner this week.
Yeah,
He was pretty excited.
Yeah,
I don't know which one was more excited, but I'm glad your parents are back in the buildings. So
It's whatever you guys think. It's whatever you think.
Oh my God.
Stop it.
Well, it's really nice for things to both be seen but also feel normal.
Yes.
So that's good. As we've just heard, it can have a huge impact.
Yeah. Move to approve revised return to learn plan as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. That included the not
Oh yeah,
adding
I had
more.
that.
Yes. Next, approval of special education ECSE program evaluation. Who is there giving our evaluation? It's Gilkey, Dr. Gilkey.
Hello. I'm just going to give you a little update on the special education programming over the last couple of years. So the strategic goals that we have kind of been working on the last few years. You'll see here, so looking at that quality instruction to help our students meet goals, not only academically, but post-graduation, to also meet the needs of each of those individual students, and then to maintain highly effective staff. So we put some new things in place this last year to support new staff that have come in. So that is kind of a tough job with the paperwork and the different things that they have to deal with the classrooms and things like that. So setting up kind of a buddy system. When we restructured SPED and added that extra process coordinator, they've been able to spend more time in the classrooms being a resource to those teachers, and I think that's made a big difference this year. We have had a huge increase in special education students over the last few years, and we've talked a lot about what's happening next door at the Early Childhood Center and stuff like that. So we currently have 420-ish students. I put this together a couple weeks ago, so we're a little higher than what you see here. while 504 isn't technically special education, it is our special education district staff that oversees and takes care of that process. So we currently have around 224 students on those. We do have a couple of students on service plans, so those are those students who are attending, well, for our district, it's Northern Hills. So those private school students who qualify for special education services or related services and come to get that instruction. Most of them are speech only. Transfer students, we continue to see that we are bringing in a lot more students than we're sending out. When they get here, they tend to stick around. Early childhood has probably been hit the hardest this year, not with transfers and then with first steps referrals. So that's those kiddos who have some kind of first step plan prior to age 3. When they get ready to turn age 3, they're referred to our early education center, and then we kind of take over that process. Some kind of learning delay, speech delay, something, where we're developing a little slower than what our non-disabled peers would be developing. We currently have 107 special education staff members. You can kind of see the breakdown here. We also have a contracted SLPA and OT and PT because of the increase in students we've seen. It's put a huge strain on our therapists, so giving them a little bit of help a day or two a week so we make sure that the kids are still getting the services that they need. You'll see with the budget here, we only have Part B, so early childhood is reimbursable. It runs a year behind, but we even out with that. So whatever we spend, we get back that following fiscal year. Part B, you'll see we spend substantially more money than what we get into return. We do get a little bit in high needs fund, but keep in mind to qualify for high needs fund, it has to be 3 times the normal per pupil expenditure. So this year it had to be over $31,000. So we funded the first $31,000 for that student, and then anything over that could be reimbursable under the high needs fund. State reported data.
Heather, can I
Yes, you can.
sorry to put you on the spot.
You're fine.
Do you know the percentage by which, and you might know this as well, the state funds special education services?
So when we go to the budget, that is.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
That's what we get. And each year we're required to meet our maintenance effort.
Right.
So we can't spend any less on special education than we did the year before.
Well, this is one of those dirty little secrets.
Yes.
In state statute, is that required by law is nearly 90% to be funded, and a few years ago I know it was somewhere around 27. So you're seeing a huge gap, and that budget illustrations is true that says that it's you all that are supporting that. You might get reimbursed for the expenses, but it's only the amount of revenue that you're getting, and there's a huge gap, and it continues to further divide services. And so anytime you get an opportunity to share that with your state representatives, you really need to tell them that. This is a state issue. It's not a federal one. It's a state issue. So when the governor puts a budget together and says he's not increasing funding for the state of Missouri for education, that means that that delta only grows for you. It doesn't get smaller. It only grows for you. It puts greater pressure on your local sources to fund.
Which is one reason we've really been watching what's been happening with the policy that's being brought up in the state of Missouri right now, and the potential financial impact that could have for us, because a lot of these things don't have any additional funding tied to them. So we'll be required to implement.
When you say the policy, what do you?
So there's some things with reading right now where they say if a student isn't reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade, that they need one-on-one reading instruction, and stopped short of naming a curriculum, but we're getting pretty close to that. There are some pretty specific parameters that they're trying to attach. And then they would be required to refer each of these kids to special education. So we would have to evaluate all of them.
I believe it's Senate Bill 681. I might be wrong on the 8 and 1, but I know it's in the 600. And what Heather is describing, I mean, open enrollment took a lot of the conversation early on. This particular bill is probably the most erroneous in terms of the state legislature dipping itself into bypassing school boards and going right to the classroom and dictating what exactly would be taught. It's
You said 681?
I believe so. It'll definitely be in the legislative update that you get this week.
Okay.
So pay attention to this one because it's got some legs.
I don't know how we'll keep up with this if this takes place. So a little bit of state reported data here. Our graduation rate for students with disabilities for the 2021 school year was 99.1%. We did have one student drop out. They have since re-enrolled and are doing well, so we hope that that continues. 100% of our transition plans for our students over the age of 16 were compliant. We're required by law to establish transition plans for any student with an IEP at least prior to the year they turn 16, if we try to do that before, because we feel like we need all the time that we can get to help get those processes in place. 100% of our 2019-20 graduates with disabilities either were competitively employed or went on to higher education. So that's exciting news. And then talking about our MAP-A alternative assessment. So this is the assessment for our most significantly cognitive deficit students. And there's a whole qualification process for this. Our special education teachers, this is something that when it started, it was one time a year. So in that spring testing window, we went through this process. It looks different, but we went through this process. A couple of years later, they added fall. So then we were doing it in the fall and we were doing it in the spring. And then a few years later, they added winter. So we're doing a testing window in spring, or fall, winter, and spring now. I know one year when I did it, I had 10 kids and did about 751 testlets, they call them. And we test in math, science, and ELA. So something to note there, sorry, skipped over this part. We had 17 kiddos that did mapping last year, and between the 17, they mastered over 1,000 skills. So our staff is amazing. A little more state reported data here, 2021, looking at that proficient and advanced on state assessment. So this is just our resource kiddos taking those same EOCs as their non-disabled peers. 23% ELA, 19.7 in math, a little bit lower than we have been. This was coming out of the pandemic, so I hope to see those numbers up a little bit higher. We did put a lot of mitigation strategies in place during the pandemic. Our early education and elementary kiddos kept the same schedule as they would any other school year. Secondary kiddos, we had in 4 days a week instead of 2. And then we touched base with them on that Wednesday as well, just to do some follow-up. So I think that all of that work that our teachers put in helped that gap not be as big as what it could have been. So 100% of our early education students leaving our center over here this last May have made substantial growth on the early education outcomes. So it's three areas we look at: social, emotional, acquiring and using knowledge and skills, and then taking appropriate action to meet their needs. And that is, we are mandated to report that when a child enters the center and then when they move on to kindergarten. That's something that we report every year. Program goals for this upcoming year, to continue quality professional development. Those opportunities haven't been as prevalent in the past because of the pandemic. I'm starting to see more of those things pop up. So to continue that, open lines of communication with staff, parents, and administration, making sure we're in those buildings, answering questions, making sure everybody's supported. Continuing those relevant instructional opportunities. We are going to start focusing more on our high school life skills programming. Prior to the pandemic, we're taking those kids out for work experience. When the pandemic happened, a lot of our partners weren't taking people, so we lost most of those sites. They are starting to open back up. So next year we would like to continue those and add some more. I have been meeting with Fulfillment House, and we are working on a partnership there. There are things that we can do to support them and their administration, employees, and then things that they can help us with in the area of transition too. So I think that'll be a really positive for us and for them. Does anybody have any questions?
So you have a new program coordinator, right? So we talked, I think it was last year, about a 504 coordinator as well. I'm not trying to put us on the hook for one, but what I'm asking is that still in your long-term plan in the next 2 to 3 years, that because of your increase in 504s that you're going to have to put a person that's going to run that department? Is that still on the books?
We're the only district in our peer district that doesn't have a 504 coordinator or someone dedicated just to that. Most of our peer districts, their process coordinator caseload's about 106 average. We're at about 250, 260 because of those 504s.
Okay. So it's just something for us to think about moving forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thoughts?
Always a challenge.
We're always
and we're going to be. I mean, we are a product of our success, unfortunately. I mean, special needs children come to our district because we provide them services, and we want, there's an unfortunate side because there's the monetary obligation that goes with it. But again, our obligation is to teach children as best we can. So I thank you.
And the beginning of at the end of last year, we only had 3 classrooms next door that were dedicated to special education. We added that 4th, and 2 months into the school year, needed a 5th. We're just growing.
Appreciate your hard work.
Thanks.
Thanks for your support. We appreciate it.
Move to approve special education Ecsc program evaluation as presented.
Second.
Sorry.
I think it's anxious to be part of it.
Yeah.
And supportive of it.
No, it is.
It's not that there's basketball.
I know.
If I don't say it quick, Dan steals it from me.
Kids. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next we have approval of discipline guide. Dr. Miller?
If you dare.
I'm not Dr. Miller. I'm
Are you
just
not?
Mr. Miller.
You're not a Dan.
I'm working on it.
I thought you were
It'll be
close.
about a year. So.
All right.
So,
chemistry.
So first off, before we get into this, I just want to say, I took my 2 girls to the spring to reading thing this evening. Put on by our elementary folks. It was outstanding. They had an awesome time, food trucks and everything. Really, really cool event. So, but the reason why I'm here as an assistant principal at the high school representing building level principals as well as other assistant principals in the district. As you all know, this is something that we do annually, and looking back and reflecting upon disciplinary incidents that we've had throughout the year, and then just going through and combing through, making sure that everything's sound, aligns properly, and things that we want to make sure that's fair and consistent across the board. So this started in January, and we met collaboratively. We never met in person physically, but we had a lot of conversations over it. So I'll just kind of summarize the first bullets. Some of them were clerical errors, to be honest with you. If you go back, because this drives our handbook, right? So we go back and we look at our handbook and we look at this and we're like, well, that doesn't match up. Well, we need to fix that. So there's some of that. And then there's also just some adjustments and things that we've extended or expanded. You'll notice the phrase up to a lot. And so that's probably the more common one in there. What you'll also notice too, if you scroll down, if you look at the junior high 8-9 building and the middle school 6-7 building, is we wanted to be purposeful in making that consistent throughout 6 through 12. So that's very important to us as well. And then elementary is somewhat foreign to me in terms of discipline, but I had conversations with those folks as well, and they've had their piece. So I would be glad to answer any questions that you might have on that or provide some clarification.
So first question is that how does this align with all of our policies as far as, you know, are you guys aligned, making sure that everything's lined up perfectly with policy?
100%.
Perfect. As a board member, that's what we focus on.
Absolutely.
Right?
Okay. So board policy drives the discipline guide drives the handbook. Perfect. From there for each individual building.
I appreciate the consistency amongst some of the buildings. As your child moves up, it was sometimes confusing to say, wait a minute, I thought this.
Sure.
So I appreciate that.
Appreciate you coming, talk to us, and all your hard work with all,
Thank you, Dan.
all of your folks. Thank you. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve the discipline guide for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
Second.
See, if I don't go quick, they take it from me. That's my point right there.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Watch, I'm gonna go fast on this one.
Yes.
I have to do this.
Oh, you have to do this?
Land Ashton.
Yeah.
Next we
He
have
asked me because
approval of forgiveness of snow days. You want to tell us a little bit about what we're voting on?
Absolutely. So during this current calendar, as it was created it contains additional hours beyond what is required by the state. That allows us the opportunity to forgive 3 snow days and still meet all of the requirements from the state, but also have sufficient time for our teachers and students to matriculate through the curriculum as well. As you know, we had snow this year and ice. We also had made use of a couple of EMI days as well in order to be able to manage this. So the calendar as it stands needs no action by the board because you've already taken action on it, and this is more of an announcement, if you will, is that the last day of school will be May 27th, that Friday prior to Memorial Day. It will be a half day of attendance. There's been some questions that have come into the office and I think on social media regarding April the 18th. That will remain a no school, non-attendance day for students. So it's a good Monday, if you will. And I don't even want to say what is that sentence underneath that, so you can just read it, because I believe in superstition. But the action that I am asking you to take is that you will approve a work calendar change for your teachers and staff members in that we will waive 3 of their snow days. In effect, what that does is takes their 191-day contract and moves it back 3 days. And it increases their daily rate of pay as well. And I think I would ask you to do this in recognition of some of the challenges that we've heard here this evening, that both our students and staff have managed through well, great results with our students, and I think it will go a long way, I think, for you to speak to your staff in such a way that values their time, their effort, and speaks to retaining people as well. So, and I'll answer any questions you might have beyond.
Hearing no questions, entertain a motion.
Move to approve for giving the first 3 snow days for KSD staff as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Why
Does that make you part of the snow committee?
I'm sorry?
Does that make you part of the snow committee?
Yes.
No, I
Yes.
just want to make sure the 18th.
Dr. Miller, Bree is volunteered for the snow committee next year. So, and I think for
All those in favor? Don't want her on that committee.
for the next 15 years. It's a lifetime appointment.
Right, great.
Next, we have board member comments.
15 years, big guy.
Mr.
Yeah.
Kelly,
Yeah.
if I might, on behalf of the board, there will be a formal recognition of you at the next meeting, but your fellow board members would like to take this opportunity here at your last full board meeting to recognize. Don't look at me like that, because I'm going to do that. So I will look away as I read to you. But we would like to take this opportunity, because you have made it very clear many times, this is your last full meeting. You will be with us next month to pass the gavel and do the formalities, but you made it clear this is the last full one. And Luke gave me permission to miss the band concert tonight so that I could be here. I will go hear them when they go to contest. I figured that I can do that. So anyway, I'm happy to be here as well, and I would like to thank Mr. Holloway for helping us put this together, but he has asked me to be the one to read it, and he said it's because I was the one who has known you the most, or the longest, which is true. And it goes back to when you were about that tall, probably. But anyhow, Mark Kelly, as a school board member of education, you have served as a volunteer representative body elected by the registered voters of the Kearney School District, local public school district. You have been passionate about supporting public education, motivated by the best interests of all children in our community, of which you have had many of your own. Serving on a school board is a demanding and unappreciated role, yet full of difficult decisions. Through that, you have supported and preserved the vision, goals, and policy for our district. As a board member, you have assisted in contract negotiations, construction projects, and many complex decisions to make. As a school board member, you professionally and personally have shared your time and your talents to help the community you grew up in which you live, to leave a very strong legacy. On behalf of your fellow board members who are serving with you now, those who have served with you in the last 15 years, we thank you for being a part of excellence in our district and pursuant of it for the school district of Kearney, your vision, dedication, and determination.
Thank you all very much. This is fantastic.
I would ask, I know you're crying, but I would ask if we could get a picture, Ray could get a picture of all of us together. I really care.
You just want to stay back here by the K? We'll just stay back here.
And just so you know, Mark, that's all eco-friendly, all made of recycled materials.
It's fantastic. I'm going to have you all scoot over that way.
So we gotta get, is that it? Right under the
There
K.
you go. Okay. Where is it?
Like
Yeah,
I'm
good
just-
spot. Yeah, good spot. Don't act like you didn't.
Very, very nice.
I have something to ask of the board. Please support the Education Foundation, and if you have not already signed up for the breakfast on April 22nd.
Yeah, 22nd, yeah, the Sunshine Round. I'm on the Education Foundation. I meant to say something earlier, but I thought we might mention something about those grants, those kid grants, so
But yeah, if you, what time is it? It's the 22nd?
Yeah, the 22nd, I want to say 7 a.m.
7 to
Yeah, I
9.
want to say 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Has to
So
be.
please sign up and support them.
It's really hard because kids get married that day. Yeah, but I'll be there.
I want to thank Ray and the Kearney students that put on the forum, and Dr. Gustafson I thought they did an incredible job for the candidates. There were people that showed up. It was great to listen to them. The students did an incredible job with their questions. I learned stuff from the candidates that I didn't know beforehand, so I thought that was great. So thank you for opening the doors and bringing that to the community. It's really appreciated. So.
I do think Mr. Miller should get it.
Oh, Mr. Miller, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The non-doctor.
Okay.
The non-doctor.
Mr. Miller was really the champion.
Yeah,
Okay.
he sent all the emails.
Well, thank you very much. It was great.
I'm going to give my last public service announcement. On April 5th, we have a very important election for this district. We have board member election. We have a bond election. If people don't vote, they have no right to complain about the outcome. You have to vote. You have to participate. You have to be a member of your community and fulfill your responsibilities that go along with that. Along with that, on the Prop B, the bond for the building and improvements of our district. If you don't support that bond, you don't support Kearney students. It's that black and white. Our district is, our spending per student is some of the lowest in the metropolitan area. So if you're critical of us for what we're spending on our students, you really need to look at what we spend it on. And it certainly isn't extravagance. It isn't in our buildings. It isn't in our salaries. But it is important. There are those who question the transparency of the board in what we're going to spend $44 million. And certainly that is a lot of money. At the same time, there are a lot of needs for this district because we have growth and we're going to continue to have growth. And we are able to do it with a no tax increase to accomplish that. When we talk about transparency, we don't know what the cost of our buildings are going to be, what our improvements are going to be, what our new elementary that's going to be, so we don't have overcrowded classrooms, so we have makerspace, so we can provide the services that Kearney Academy talks about, whether it's in the elementary school or all the way through junior high, middle school, and high school. We have to prepare for the growth that's coming, and we know it is because it's continued to, other than when we had our recession, and we had slowed, if not zero growth, it was no growth. We have continued now in the last several years to continue to grow, and we have to anticipate that. But we don't know what this building is going to cost. We were estimating $350 a square foot. Our architects and our engineers are telling us now the bids that they're getting in are $450 a square foot. So if it costs that to build an elementary school, we don't know what it's going to cost to expand early education. The school, when we designed it, this building, when we designed it, was to be able to put full use to early education center, and we're doing that. We can do that at a cost-effective way, and we can take over the Mosaic building for administration. These are not gold-plated, these are not silver-plated, these are basics, classroom, office size space that we're going to use. This is not extravagance. These are necessary if we're going to provide services for our students. And that's what we're here for. That's certainly what everybody I know that's on the board today would tell us. We're here for the students. And that's why I implore you to get out and support our bond and vote for it and support your students. And I hope everybody follows that. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Next, we have important dates. Election Day, April 5th. April 6th is an early out. April 13th is our next board meeting, and my last. April 18th, no school. Entertain a motion.
Action for a closed session to immediately precede the meeting in April, including any record or vote to discuss items and issues allowable under section 610-021 of the Missouri Sunshine Law.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Darlene,
Yes.
Brian, Dan,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Bree,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.